Hi, I'm Maria, aka That Philosophy Girl. Welcome to my channel, the place where I talk about philosophy, academia, and all the big messy questions I'm trying to make sense of as a student. On my first video, I told you guys I was writing my BA thesis, and I can confirm I'm still doing that. Or well, trying to. Today, I'll walk you through the first steps of creating a bachelor thesis. Whether you're in the process of writing it, or thinking about writing it, or you're simply curious about the process, stick around. So let's say you're a second year and you're starting to realize that the moment you've been dreading or looking forward to, depending on your persuasion, is near. The bachelor thesis. You might have already thought of some topics, maybe even contacted some professors, but is your thesis truly ready? Let me tell you now, no it isn't, fellas. Yeah, sorry to burst your bubble, fellas, but as the saying goes, a perfect thesis is never finished, and a finished thesis is never perfect. If you're expecting to end up with specific answers, you might want to adjust your expectations. A thesis is supposed to be your first piece of academic work, your first original contribution to the world. It's a scary process. Like, who died and made media for a cross-cultural castle? But fear not, for I bring you the things I wish I knew when I started and the steps I followed. Step 1, chill out. If you're like me, a chronic overachiever, and started way earlier than you were supposed to, you need to calm down. There's nothing wrong with starting early, but know the following things. 1, you're gonna change your mind. A lot. Like a lot. I started wanting to talk about the monarchy in Spain and ended up with pacifism. And my thesis supervisor had to hear me rant about all the topics in between. And trust me, there were a lot. 2, chances are that your initial scope is way too broad for a thesis, so accept that you might have to cut it down at some point. Bottom line, this is the first time you write a thesis, so don't expect it to be perfect on the first try. And remember, there is no need to rush. It's about the journey, not the destination. Step 2, choose a topic. This is closely related to step 3, and the chronological order in which you should be doing these is really blurry, but it helps to pick a general area of research before you dive into the specific. In some ways, it's like choosing a degree. You might not know what degree specifically you want to enroll in, but you might know what you like: science or sociology or technology or something like that. In my case, as I said, I started writing about the Spanish monarchy, but I decided that I had to spend a year writing about it and produce at least 25 pages about such a topic. And knowing me, I knew I would probably get bored quickly, so I dropped it. After thinking carefully, I came to the conclusion that I enrolled in a program like PPE to help people and understand what makes conflicts happen, so I could stop them. Essentially, I wanted to study wars and I wanted to study how to avoid them. Step 3, define a research question. Now, when you have a general field of research, for example, wars, climate change, the far right, etc., it's time to get specific and define your research question. Remember how we said that this had to be a contribution to the academic world? Well, here's how. The research question is the question you are supposed to answer throughout your thesis, the aim of it. You're not just compiling information to write an essay like you would in high school. You're creating something completely new. To do it, I suggest you think a little bit more in depth about what draws you to that topic. When I chose the topic of wars, I asked myself, why do wars start? Why do they end? And everything in between. So, why are you interested in EU politics? What draws you to the problems of climate change? Why write about your home country? What is the purpose? Damn, I think I'm turning into Aristotle here. In the end, it should look a little bit like this. What effect does daily use of Twitter have on the attention span of 12 to 16-year-olds? What impact have university internationalization policies had on the availability and affordability of housing in the Netherlands? Sounds overwhelming, like you can't get it right? No problem, I have come up with a formula that will help you. I came up with it after analyzing a lot of social sciences research papers, but if there are any science majors watching this, let me know if this also applies to you guys, because there are different fields, we study different things, you know. I have two versions of this formula, so it can either go like this: what plus effect slash impact does plus subjective research have on plus secondary subjective research plus time plus space plus any specifics that you might need depending on your research. Or it can go like this: how does plus subjective research plus impact or effect plus secondary subjective research plus time plus space plus any other specifics. And bear in mind, what makes this research question specific is precisely having these two subjects of research. How can wars end? That is too broad, and if you solved it, you probably win a Nobel. But can states engaging in international conflicts be declared morally unjustifiable in all cases? That begins to be more manageable. 4. Write a research proposal. Usually universities provide templates for these, although I will link mine in the description below in case you guys want to check it out or need some orientation. Essentially, a thesis proposal is like the Tinder profile of your thesis, and professors will swipe right or left according to whether or not they find it suitable to stamp their names on it. Let's take a look at mine, shall we? You will have to provide not only a research question, but a title, a summary, the hypothesis you'll be testing, a preliminary list of the literature you intend on using, methodology, a proposed structure, and or potential threats to your research. Should have written imposter syndrome there. Now, the most challenging part of this is the title, because once registered, you can't change it. It's set in stone forever and ever until the end of time. You want to make sure it's something specific, but not overloaded with jargon. Arguing for pacifism in a globalizing world, rooting the termination of war in shared human experiences. In all fairness, it was the result of a lot of back and forth between me and my supervisor. We changed the title maybe 5 or 6 times, I think. True nightmare. But you have plenty of chances to change it before the thesis is formally registered. So for your proposal, try to go with something along the lines of explaining what you want to do and how you want to do it. Step 5. Find a supervisor. Okay, for this part, there is no trick to it. Sometimes you find an excellent supervisor, and sometimes you're stuck with what you have. I was lucky enough to know who I wanted to supervising my thesis since day one, and lucky enough, he agreed. But that's not always the case. So, speaking from other people's experiences, I recommend the following. Choose someone from your faculty, but most importantly, someone who you know is going to stay for the duration of your thesis. So no exchange PhD students or guest lecturers, mainly because the university has no control over them. So if they decide to ghost you, there's nothing they can do about it. 2. Look for professors or PhD students, if your faculty allows it, that know what you're researching. My supervisor, for example, is an expert in moral philosophy, but I have a colleague who wanted to write multidisciplinary thesis and had to outsource consultations in the fields where her supervisor had no knowledge. 3. Get ready to be rejected. Not saying it would 100% happen, but you never know. And that's not necessarily your fault either. Sometimes professors are just too busy, and supervising a thesis is a lot of work if done right. 4. Before you commit, ask about the methods of supervision. You might have some expectations of what having a thesis supervisor might be like, but you might be wrong. And it's better to ask about these things in advance to avoid disappointments or misunderstandings later. And last but not least, keep your options open. Like in Tinder, it's okay to match with several people and then decide afterwards. Trust me, professors are way too busy with their own lives and their own work to feel stingy about being rejected. Oh no, less work for me. But remember, always be polite, straight to the point, and respectful with their time. And that's all I have to teach you about my experience registering my bachelor thesis. Let me know if you still have any doubts in the comments below, and I'll try to solve them. This is That Philosophy Girl, and I'm really excited to figure all of this out with you.